All right, welcome to today's session. If you've ever wondered how to grow your coaching business in a way that feels sustainable, where you're attracting consistent leads, growing your visibility, and delivering solid program without burning out, you're going to love today's session because today we're going to go behind the scenes with someone who's built a business with real structure, strong systems, and a serious credibility, Eliana Goldstein. Eliana is a career coach for millennials based in New York, a LinkedIn learning instructor, and a trusted voice with a strong presence on social media. She's been featured across major media outlets and consistently shows up as a thought leader in the career space. She runs both a one-on-one coaching program and a group coaching program, has hired a team of 8 coaches to help deliver her offers, and brought on 2 dedicated salespeople, all while attracting weekly leads through powerful evergreen content and SEO. She's created a coaching business that reflects both strategy and soul. It's not just about chasing trends, it's about building something intentional and aligned. Eliana was part of my mastermind retreat in Cancun last year in 2024, and I knew after hearing her share that I had to invite her back for this intimate conversation. In fact, today's such a full circle moment for us because it's 1 year since she attended my mastermind. She brings not just business wisdom, but honesty, humility, and heart to everything she does. And I know her story will inspire you. So here's what to expect in today's session. Eliana will walk us through her business journey from being a solo coach to building a business with a team, systems, and support. She'll share how she uses SEO and evergreen content to attract consistent leads. You'll hear how she structured her one-on-one and group programs and how she decided to who goes where. She'll also talk about how she hired and trained her coaching team and sales team. And of course, we're going to open up for a live Q&A so you can get your personalized insights for your business. Welcome, Eliana. We're so delighted to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I was saying to Diana before, it's like whenever somebody else talks about you, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I'm doing okay, right? It's always like it's hard to recognize those things about yourself, but it's always very refreshing to hear from another perspective. So thank you for that introduction.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, so today is like a group with my clients only, so it's a very intimate group. And so feel free to type in the chat to share with also Eliana how long you've been in business, where you're at in your journey, what you're looking to grow, what are you excited about learning today. I'm going to kick things off with some questions for her, and then we're going to give you an opportunity to ask her questions. One thing that I really admire about Eliana is just how tactical you can get with business advice, and I've seen you in action and guiding others. So I think this is a great opportunity for others to get hands-on expert advice from you today. So to kick things off, can you paint a picture of where your business was when you first started in terms of offers, team, and visibility?
This is like at the very, very beginning.
Yeah, very beginning, 5 years ago. Take us back, 5.5 years
Okay.
ago.
So when I first started, like many people, I started with one-on-one coaching. And I think one-on-one coaching is obviously a really great way to just do market research, see what's working, kind of create a structure and a curriculum and see what's resonating with people and what's not resonating with people. And I did that for a while. And then like many coaches, you realize that there's only so much time you have in a day and you can very quickly burn out from one-on-one. And so I wanted to start doing group coaching. So at that point, I built out a group coaching program. I want to say this was maybe 8 to 12 months into starting. And when I started that program, it was basically like live group coaching where I would bring people in and then I would be teaching the curriculum live and then supplementing that with doing kind of Q&A calls. And that kind of then became a baseline for my course where I took those recorded live trainings that I was doing and I put it into a course format. And then I was sharing that with people for basically a self-paced course. And then since then, we've had one-on-one coaching, then the group program. And from there, it's just been like iteration after iteration after iteration where my group program has changed so much. The structure of it, we've gone from having it be solely group to having one-on-one components. So I've always been very much like testing out what's working, what's not working, what are people enjoying, what are they not enjoying, and just making sure that we're consistently updating it. And like even when I was in the mastermind with Diana last year, one of the big takeaways for me was I actually restructured the group coaching program again. And that was probably the third or fourth time that I had done it. So everything's always a work in progress, and that's always very much my philosophy that you got to change, you got to update. And yeah, that's where I was one on one, and then shifting into group. And then I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about this, but one of the biggest like parts of my business that's scaled has been scaling one on one coaching with a coaching team. So we can talk a little bit more about that,
I
whenever.
love that. Really set the context of your strategy has been scaling not just the group program, but also with a team of coaches who could coach one-on-one to handle
Yeah.
that volume. So we'll talk more about that. Amazing. So tell us a little bit more. Like you came to the retreat last year.
Yeah.
What were some of those key takeaway shifts that you experienced from attending? And what are the
Yeah.
changes that you made to help you grow even further? Because how many people did you
Absolutely.
have just a year ago? Like, I'm curious how many people you had like a year ago.
Coaches on the team.
Yeah.
I think that we maybe had like maybe three or four. So we basically doubled, if not a little bit more.
Okay.
Um, and then beyond that, to like hiring another salesperson, we've done that since then. And then also, like I said, like the big change was how we completely restructured the group coaching program and included basically we restructured it to go from strictly group to having group with one-on-one components, which I was able to do with the additional coaches that I had hired. And that also allowed us to increase the price point of it as well. So that was a big jump in being able to just scale from that perspective and raise the rates.
Got it. Okay. So you essentially double your sales team, double your number of coaches. Can you walk us through a little bit your rationale, how one, you decided that you want to bring on more coaches? I think that's
Yeah.
one question most people have. And then the
Mhm.
second is around how you think about pricing in terms of paying them. But I think the third that people most have is how do we make sure they don't take your clients?
Yes, yes. And that goes straight into the pricing. So I'll talk about that a little bit. But basically, for context, I'm a career coach. I primarily work with millennials, kind of like late 20s to late 30s, all of whom are really approaching pivots and changes. And my husband always jokes with me that like I'm coaching one of the hardest demographics in the market right now, which I don't disagree with, but something that's always been incredibly important to me has been making sure that people feel like they have like the space in the container to do the deep thinking and thinking about like how do I want to pivot and being able to brainstorm and go back and forth. And I felt really both from listening to my clients and just my own experiences that doing those in a one-on-one setting was really important. And I would hear from people all the time when talking about our pitching group, I'm not really sure I'm comfortable talking about these things in a group setting. And I just feel like one-on-one coaching is really important to me. And I came to a point of learning that I wasn't going to force people who didn't want to be in a group into a group. And at the same time, I didn't want to lose those clients that I knew I could help. And I was at a point where I couldn't take more people on. It was just, like I mentioned before, coming to a point of burnout. So I said, I want to be able to give people the one-on-one experience that they really desire and where I know we can be most supportive, but while making sure that I can focus on the things that I need to focus on and that I'm not, driving myself to burnout. And that was when I decided to bring on my first coach. And that was a coach I had actually been working with a little bit in the group coaching program. She had been supporting me a little bit there. And so I kind of just proposed the idea, how would you feel about you kind of know our curriculum, you know our clientele, how would you feel about coming onto the one-on-one side of my business and supporting clients from that perspective? So it was like very much a natural progression. And when that we started with that model and people were really taking to it, and obviously I had so many of the fears around how will people feel that they're not working with me directly? Will we lose clients because of that? And all those kind of natural thoughts. But obviously, there's some learnings and things that we experienced, but it was working well. And then it just kind of naturally grew from there. And most of the coaches on our team came through a referral or something like that. And it just built and built.
Amazing. I love that. So essentially you started with the group first with the coach, and then you brought into the one-on-one. And what I'm hearing is this around the demand, like there was a demand for it as well, like from the market of asking you for this, and hence why you decided to keep it.
Exactly. And I think a lot of the times people for people always say, you want to scale, you have to do a group program. And I don't disagree with that. I have a group program as well. But I think that you really have to listen to your potential clients. And I really just had clients that said, I want to do this type of work in a one-on-one setting when we're talking about, where have I been in my career and where do I want to go forward and sitting and doing those brainstorms. And even personally, like I think that a lot of that work happens best in more of a one-on-one setting. So I didn't want to force somebody into a container that I just didn't feel would be as successful for them. So we wanted to maintain that in a way, but be able to do that in a scalable way.
I love that learning here. Let's dive a little bit more then from a sales standpoint. You have a sales team now, but you also still do sales calls. When it comes to talking to a prospect, how do you guide them through whether they're the right fit for the one-on-one or the group program? Like, how do you go approach about doing that without confusing them so that they don't buy or not sure what to pick?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that we do before we even get on the phone with them, based on the inquiry that they fill out and some of the things that they share in terms of what their goals are and what they're looking to achieve, and even budget and things like that, we kind of identify prior to the call which direction we think we will lean, just so that we know going in and we can be prepared from that perspective. And it's like, for me, it's so important to really collect as much information as possible prior to speaking to them. So we go in with that intention, but then also knowing that we can pivot if it's necessary, right? And I think kind of so people understand without, getting too much into the details, but the way that our offerings work is that we have this group coaching program that's more so like the full package or every aspect of the job search, from building confidence, gaining clarity, to executing, to interviewing, right? Where we really cover the whole gamut, versus our career strategy packages are a little more short term. So in our career strategy packages is what we're doing the one-on-one coaching for. So generally, if we see a client that has shorter term goals or it's a little bit more tactical focused, then we'll generally lean into the career strategy packages. But if we see it's somebody who really needs help, like A to Z, and this is somebody that like needs like an additional level of accountability and handholding, then we'll generally pivot into the career upgrade program. And what we try to do, myself, my salespeople, is that we try not to do it where we're pitching both and saying, oh, we have this or we have that. Which do you prefer? Because I think that tends to really confuse people. But we instead really say, like, based on everything that you're sharing and what you're looking to achieve and where you're struggling, this is the program that we really feel is going to be the best fit. And here's why, right? So, like, we're empowering them to feel, oh, like, this is what's really going to help me, and directing them from that perspective.
I love that. So what I'm hearing, the learning here, this is we were talking about the sales here, the importance of one, we need to understand a bit of their situation so that we're prepared for the sales call. Second is really active listening so that then we can also be a great advisor, an expert of recommending the right program for them. So they don't even have to bother, you don't even bother telling the other one if you believe this is the right fit for them there.
Exactly. Exactly. I think like a good sales call, you're doing much more listening than you are talking, right? And I think sometimes when we think sales call, it's like a pitch, right? Okay, here's my program. Here's how I do. Sometimes like we're coming to the end and we've like spent most of the time talking, right? And it's just, and at that point, it's so much more of a natural sell. So the more you can get them talking, the more you can be collecting information and then taking that information and tailoring how you're pitching the specific offering to them. I think that makes the biggest difference.
Got it. Now we have some folks here who are looking to bring in a salesperson or training someone. What's your advice in terms of one, onboarding them? And I know you're onboarding a second person right now, so you're going through that. Advice on onboarding. And second is also making sure they're your brand voice representation of that, like the criteria for that there. And how do you handle if they're not performing well? Are there like, what's that process? And
Yes. So I think, I mean, for hiring a salesperson, the best ideal salesperson is somebody who's been through your program. So somebody that you have worked with, who gets it, who has been able to transform as a result of it. Obviously, they're like a walking testimonial already because they've done it and they've experienced it. So that is where I started. I found a client of mine who I just really connected with, who had seen great results, and he just happened to be somebody who landed a sales role. So I knew that he had that fundamental sales background. And obviously, It's very different. My background is sales as well. I was in ad tech. I was in ad sales for years, but selling a service is very different than selling a product. So I knew that he would still have to kind of understand what that looks like. And a lot of it in the beginning was obviously like, walking him through, okay, these are the types of questions that I ask. This is how we kind of vet clients and see which way do we want to pitch and things like that. But a lot of it is just kind of like practice. And I recorded a lot of my own sales calls, had him listen in on a lot of them, obviously just encouraging to ask as many questions as possible and giving people the time to ramp up, right? And letting him know, like, I do not expect you to be coming in and like closing deals from the get-go. It's going to take a little bit of time. But he's really like, he's been with me now for 2 years. And look, like there's always going to be ups and downs. We have quarters that he's closing more than others. And I think for me, it's always about not ever making them feel pressure, but just really understanding, okay, like what's working for well for you, what's not. Are you struggling with anything? Is there anything about our product suite and how it's changed that isn't, that's more difficult for you? So it's just that open communication. And again, as an ex-seller, having a terrible manager who's putting pressure on you from like a commission and quota perspective, that's the worst. So I just really try to make sure that he always feels like he's being supported and, there's that open line of communication.
Yeah. And your sales person, he manages all of it essentially. Like, do you need to step in to do the final close? Like, is it a one-step process or like what's?
So he, like his clients, he owns completely. He gets on the phone with them, he closes them, he enrolls them, he hands them off to the coach or enrolls them into the programs, whatever it is. Um, Obviously, I still take some sales calls myself because I think it's really important to like have a finger on the pulse and just know what you're hearing in market. So I'll take a couple sales calls a week, but the calls he gets on, those are his. I'm not stepping in. Maybe I answer a question or two over email if they direct it towards me, but it's really him.
Okay, got it. So I'm going to dive a little deeper because I know you're really good at this here. Like, so you guys get about what, 40 plus sales calls a month,
Mhm.
right? And this is like through all inbound organic leads who come in, and we'll talk more about the SEO stuff. Um, One piece I want to dive in a little bit deeper is on objection handling. Maybe you can walk through some maybe common objections that you hear and how you go about even turning a no into a yes.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that obviously, and I mean, this goes without saying, but if it's a client that you really, really believe you can help, right? And you know what's possible for them in the transformation, then I think it's important to push them a little bit. Like, for example, I had a client that just, signed up with us and I could see how much she needed it and how transformational it was going to be, but she was incredibly overwhelmed at work. And she was saying to me, like, I physically don't know if I'll be able to make the time for this, right? Like I can hardly finish my work as is. How am I going to figure out being able to, find time for this? And I kind of just like tried to be a little bit of a mirror to her. And I was like, I completely understand where you're at, right? The validation, making them feel seen, but then saying, if you need to do this work in order to get out, like you're gonna have to make time for this, right? And by not making time for this, all you're doing is extending your own situation where you're at, right? So I think it's like there's a level of honesty, but it just has to be delivered in an effective way and in a way that they don't feel attacked, but they feel seen. And that is just kind of making them realize, yeah, like you're right. There is never going to be a better time. And if I am so miserable because of this job that's making me work so many hours, well, how am I going to get out of this if I never take the steps to get out, right? So I think it's definitely a lot of that. I'm sure that there are more price objections and things from that perspective. I will say, and I think it's different like now versus in the very beginning. I feel like in the beginning, like when it was really a price objection, I really tried hard to like push people through that and see the investment and like the typical, well, like this is an investment. Let's like, there could be a huge ROI on this. I feel like now I'm more in a place that like, if I really feel like this is a price issue, I actually don't push as hard or I downsell, right? But I have different offerings. So if somebody can't afford this program, we could do a course instead, right? And that kind of comes to like having like a more built out product suite so that you can still capture the client, but not in a way that feels overwhelming for them. So I think about that, or sometimes, yeah, again, if I just like sense that this is not going to happen and it's going to make them feel more anxious than it is going to help them, I'm like, okay, you know what? Why don't we revisit this in a few months from now and see how things are? But I mean, I can answer any specifics, but that's what comes to mind.
I love that. I mean, what I'm hearing is the importance of there's a mirroring, there's a listening, there's pushing back, and really trusting your intuition. What I'm hearing, there's a bit of also just your own judgment and intuition, how much to push.
Yeah.
Especially I would say like people who are really interested in working with you, but it's having this fear of just investing in themselves,
Yeah.
and just this fear they've never done it before. And so just how do we hold space for them to acknowledge this change and transformation that's about to happen there?
And something too, Diana, that we've even talked about as well is also like coming up with alternative, payment plans. Like I have a client right now a potential client is like, I really want to do this, but is there any way you would do a more extended payment plan for me? And even though it's not something we normally do or advertise for them, I'm like, of course, like we can come up with something more custom for you, right? So I think that if you really feel they're a fit and they really want to make it work, then it's about kind of partnering and to a degree negotiating to figure out what's going to work for both of you.
I love that, right? Possibilities mindset. I always like to have what's possible? What can we do here? Question here. Katie has a question. Right now, is your group still till you get the job support?
Yes, it is. So it's still till you get the job support. And that was something, again, because pretty much all my clients are pivoters. That was something that I felt really strongly about. And again, it's a tough job market for people who are pivoting right now. Like, there's really no way around that. The timelines are not what they used to be, like when I started this years ago, even 2 years ago. And I really wanted people to know that, like, we're there to kind of partner with them until they make it happen. So we we changed that in the mastermind last year, and we have kept it since.
That's right. Okay, so essentially, it's giving more that reassurance
Yes.
to invest, right? Decrease the
Mhm.
risk of investment, the perceived risk of investment there, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay, good. So I'm going to talk a little bit marketing before I open the floor up here. So we talked about sales here. Let's move into marketing, lead generation, lead management. Tell us a little bit how does leads work for you? Because you primarily do only inbound leads here, not any outbound, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's evolved over the years big time. In the past few years, it really has been like through search. That is really how all of our clients find us. I know people are always like, what? That's crazy, and things like that. And it's great. It's really wonderful. I always joke that like I wish I had like this incredible SEO strategy that I could give people. And it's not so much that. Basically, it all started a couple years ago now. I want to say at least 2 years ago, I decided to rebuild out my website. And I have always found that like a lot of coach websites in the coaching world are very generic looking. They all look the same, and there's just they don't feel differentiated or unique. So I hired a designer that I really loved, and I just loved her aesthetic and how she built sites out, and I felt like that would be a differentiator for us, that when people are searching and looking up coaches sites, when they see a site that they're like, oh, this actually feels like I like aesthetically this is pleasing. The copy on it doesn't feel like typical generic copy, that would be a differentiator. So we worked to kind of build that site, bring it to life. But then on this back end, also really had our focus on like SEO and optimization there, and just really thought about, okay, what are like the main keywords that people, first of all, like how are people finding us right now if they are finding us through search? Like, are they searching millennial career coach? Even on Instagram, right? Like when people are searching, how do people find us? Like going to your clients and asking, how did you find me, right? Did you search career coach, millennial career coach, career pivot coach, whatever it is? Like figure out how people are finding you and then use that to kind of optimize on the back end. Again, like we're not doing paid ads, like we're not doing paid search or anything like that. It's just kind of the typical, once you start showing up, you get a lot of clicks, your search engine ranking improves. So we've just seen a lot of that over the past few years. But I would say 100% like invest in SEO. I think it's one of the most underutilized channels. And if you can create a system where you rank relatively high for the keywords that you want to be associated with, it makes your life just 100 times easier. And something that I also find is that leads that come through search are far more qualified than leads that come through social. And that's coming from somebody who has done both. And I really find that people who search for a career coach are in the mindset of, I want to buy from a coach. I want to just find the right one. So they're much easier to convert.
Are you finding now primarily your leads are coming through search versus social media?
Oh, yeah. big time. And
Majority.
I think, it's like one of those not double-edged swords, but one of those situations where because we get so much inbound from search, I'm not as focused. I don't worry about social media as much, right? Like I'm very much like a pick your lane and stop trying to do a million things. So I'm like, if this is working for me, I'm going to focus on this. And social media, we primarily use for like getting people on our email list or watching our free masterclass, right? And then eventually through email list, through masterclass, they might sign up for a sales call and things like that. But that's like a lot of my content that is there. It's not necessarily like funny enough, I did a post today like encouraging people to book a call, but like I never do that ever. It's generally just like value added content, just watch a masterclass and things like that.
Okay, great. I want to dive a little deeper. Like for if you were to give advice in terms of thinking of the marketing strategy of how do you go about thinking of marketing your services and business right now? Because we have obviously we know the SEO is working for you. How
Yeah.
do you think about your content strategy, your masterclass strategy, and like your email strategy? I know you're doing all of that and you're featured in a lot of media as well. Just I want everyone to understand how your brain works, of how you think about thinking about this, of building your presence and visibility.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll be honest, I've said this to Diana before, content about like I hate creating content, right? And I think part of it is like you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And I do it, but it brings me no joy, right? So you have to really think about, okay, what do I enjoy doing and what am I yielding results on ultimately, right? So for me, creating content, like the pressure of creating content was always a lot. And so for me, like I don't even necessarily have a specific content strategy where I do this and that. I really lean into like, what is it that I want to talk about right now? And what do I think is relevant? And what am I seeing in, the trades and in the news this week that's going to be pertinent to others, as opposed to feeling like I have a nail down, this is my strategy for the upcoming month, right? And that's just what works for me. And that's why I say like you have to figure out what works for you. And when you're pushing yourself to do something that just feels inorganic, I just think it never ends up working, right? So generally Monday mornings, I kind of like map out a rough idea of what we're going to do for the week. I use ChatGPT a lot because again, I hate doing it. So anything that can help me come up with ideas, I'm going to use that. And then I kind of like I have, it's like Mondays I do a reel and then Tuesdays I do a carousel post. So like I have some of those like small strategies, but again, I am not the content queen like some people here are, because it's not what brings me joy. So, I mean, that's how I think about content a little bit. And I think like it's just the best advice I've always been given and that I always share is you just have to think about like, where is like my ROI coming from in terms of time spent? What do I enjoy? And kind of how do I marry those two things, right? Like instead of, I need to create a strategy for LinkedIn and for TikTok and make email and this and that, like where are your leads coming from? Focus on that and double down on that, right? As opposed to spreading yourself really thin.
I love that advice. Focus on what's giving you the biggest ROI, like what's working, and double down on that. So for you right now, it's the SEO that's really working well for you.
Yes. Yes, the SEO that's working well. And now we're kind of coming to a place because we brought in another salesperson where we want to kind of expand beyond inbound and we're going to focus more on outbound. But that's so I'm kind of working with like my sales VA on that and what that strategy is going to look like. But we needed to get it to a place that like we had the capacity to do that first, right? So thinking about all of that. And I see Teresa had a question. Regarding SEO, do you use blogs to drive most of the traffic or website copy only? So website copy one, and another one that kind of drives back into media. Um, I've been featured in a decent amount of articles now, and all of those are backlinks where there'll be links to my website, right? So when you have those backlinks can also improve your search ranking. So when you're getting media features, that can help as well. So outside of like just building authority, it can actually help from an SEO perspective when your website is backlinked across a lot of outside sources too. But I don't honestly do blog post or anything like that. I just hired like an incredible copywriter who wrote every piece of copy on my website. Plus like my designer who also optimized for SEO on the back end and things like that.
Yeah. Can you elaborate what backlink is for those who are not familiar, like what that? Means for them.
Sure.
I know that's a
I'm,
little
Someone
technical.
can probably like correct me. I'll probably say this wrong. But basically, when I'm in a media feature, they're always linking to my website on it, right? So it'll be
Got
like
it.
career coach Eliana Goldstein, and then my website's featured there. And because it's being featured across multiple platforms and multiple sites, that helps in my overall ranking and improves that ranking.
Got it. So it's like leverage. When you think about it, it's all the leverage that you have out there. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's part of the visibility strategy. I love that. I'm going to open up the floor to questions soon here. So we talked about marketing here, and we talked about visibility. I want to bring it back to being the CEO, mindset and CEO. What are some of the mindset shifts that you have to make as you step into the role as a CEO and when you start building a team? Were there moments when you just questioned, like, if this could all work or overwhelmed by building the team? How did you push through that?
I feel that way every day, Diana. No, I'm kidding. But I think that there's a part of you that's always going to question yourself, right? And I think one of the things that I've always struggled with, and I'm sure a lot of people can resonate, is the idea that like the goalpost is always moving, right? Oh, I want to get to my first 10K month. And oh, now I want to get to my first 30K month. And now I want to get here. And now I want to get there, right? And it's like you get there and then it's never good enough and you want more. And I feel like honestly, stepping into a CEO mindset was just creating more happiness and fulfillment where I was and being able to celebrate those moments. Because if it's never good enough, there's going to be so much pressure. And when you feel that pressure, it's very hard to advance. So I think that was a big part of it of, okay, like let me be proud of where I am and what I've accomplished before being like, oh, got to get to the next level, right? And then another big thing too, and I know I said this on the mastermind last year, and this has helped me tremendously. And this kind of goes with it's the same theme and idea is The Gap and the Gain, which is a book that I have on my desk. I can show it to you guys, but it's a great book that's just basically always focusing on, are you focusing on where you are and where you want to be, right? Kind of the same idea as the goalpost, or are you focusing on where you were and where you are now? And I think that I was always in such a comparison trap for the first few years of building this business. I did this, but this person's doing that. And oh my God, I started at the same time as this person and they're already there. What am I doing wrong? Right. And that kept me so stuck in my head and left me feeling very like insecure and depleted that it was so hard for me to really build. And I think there was a realization I had last year that I was just like, I need to focus on the gain and not the gap. And that's really become my motto. And I think that's really helped in terms of embodying the confidence which is needed to lead and to be a CEO, right? And to instill confidence in your team, right? That they're doing well and that everyone's crushing it, right? Like you need to lead with that confidence in order for others to feel confident. And if you're kind of like faltering or you're having those moments or they're sensing that you're feeling that insecurity, it's hard for them to feel insecure. So I feel like that's been the biggest thing for me. It's really the mindset shifts.
I love that you're talking about this because we were just talking with in our group session yesterday of this perspective, right? It's like, how far do I still need to go, or why am I not there yet, versus how far I've come. And as we even reflect on this past quarter, the shift of like, what's wrong with me, or what am I doing wrong, versus what is the opportunity here? Where are the gaps? How can I improve this? Totally shifts us into more problem solving mode versus a blaming ourselves mode. And so I love that you're talking about this because this also impacts your team energy dynamics of operations there.
100%. Yeah. And I sometimes, like I say, I'm like honest to a fault where like I'll share. I think part of it is, yes, you need to be confident and you need to project that confidence for the people that you're working with, for your team and things like that. But I also think being honest when you're struggling is important too, right? And just like this past week, we just hired like an operations consultant who's kind of like revamping a lot of the back end of our business. And that happened because I got to a point of just feeling so overwhelmed managing a lot of things. And like I shared that with my coaches. I was like, I just want you guys to know that I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now. And I know there's a lot that I'm managing. I have someone coming in to help me, but like, thank you for bearing with me. Right. And like, it's nice for them to see that. And they're obviously comforting, right? It just like creates this like open, like I said, open communication, I think is so important. And I always want people to be on the same page and know that any problems that are there are being addressed, right? So I think that's a really key component as
Yeah.
well.
How are you managing your time now, like being the CEO and having a team? Just tell us a little bit, like the split of time of between like working on your business versus being in your business. That's something I talk
Yeah.
a lot about.
Yes, yeah. And that's honestly something that I'm very much working on right now and why I hired this operations person because it was getting to a point that I was working too much in the business. And so we have somebody who's kind of like really automating and just like bringing in AI and just really trying to make us more efficient because it's so important to do that, right? And we talked about you burn out from doing too much one-on-one coaching. You burn out just from like the back end and doing like wearing a million different hats. So that's something I have become very aware of and cognizant of, and that I'm like very much addressing. And I think that it's one of those things that like generally I'm a believer in like create the problem and then address it, but I think that to be able to be proactive about like preventing yourself from getting too caught up in the day to day, and to the extent that even when you're starting out and your business is smaller, you can figure out like how do I leverage my CEO hat now? How do I be more efficient? How do I, outsource this, or again like use AI for this, just so that you can focus on the revenue driving tasks, right? Like that's going to be most important. And sometimes when I'm really caught up, like I feel like there's a million things for me to do right now, I say, okay, like which one of these is actually going to drive revenue for me? That's what I'm going to prioritize. And anything else I'm just going to put on the back burner for now.
All right, key lesson. Focus on revenue generating activities. This is what I'm learning from Eliana right now, is your mind is I'm focusing on revenue generating activities, how you're spending your time. That's part of your priority. And so my final question, I want to open the floor to ask questions here is if you think back right now, like the different stages of milestones, right? Hitting your first 10K month, 20K month, building that six-figure business, then a multi-six-figure business, and then hiring a team. Can you maybe share with the group, it's like, what are some expected challenges that you're going to face and you're just going to have to deal with as you go through as an entrepreneur? And how do you go about dealing with these problems out there? Like anticipating these problems and how to go about handling that, this mindset. And
Yeah, absolutely. Every level, there's a new devil, right? Like, no matter where you are, there's always going to be something that comes up. And I think it really goes back to the mindset because I think for me, and I know for so many people, like and it's not usually like tactical things you can figure out, right? Oh, this isn't working, let's switch this, let's fix this. But it's really like how you speak to yourself that impacts things the most. And I think like imposter syndrome still comes up, right? And especially now, I'm sure for everybody as career coaches, something that I struggle with and that I'm very honest about is that it's harder for people to land jobs right now. And it's hard to not internalize that as a coach, right? And see people having a harder time and feel like, oh my gosh, am I doing something wrong, right? But when you start feeling that way, again, that depletes your energy, then you're not the best version of yourself. So I think it's like it's being aware of the things that come up for you, that impact you, of the mindsets that tend to kind of deplete you and strip your confidence, and having the reframes for in that moment, or having a coach or a mentor that you can go to for like the quick pep talk when you need it, right? I think like whatever you can do to keep your confidence level up and to be able to kind of push through those mental blocks, that's more important than anything you do from a tactical perspective.
I love that. That's very insightful. This is so good. Let's give some love to Eliana here. Love it, love it. What are some of your learnings, folks? I'm opening up. I want to see the group here. Learnings first, key learning lessons, ahas, light bulb moments before we dive into specific questions. What's been so helpful so far? Let's just do a little quick round table here. Who is see? Jackie. Jackie, I see you share something. I want to hear from you. What are some ahas, insights that you learned here?
I'm sorry, I was just taking myself off mute. So, excuse me, Eliana, I've followed you for a while and have just been so, just wanting to be you basically when I grow up. But I love some of the things that you said around how you still made space in your work for one-on-one and how you truly listen to your clients to figure out, okay, is it the signature program? Is it the one-on-one program? And how, you talked about listening through the sales process. And then I love the piece around kind of like focusing on the gain, not the gap. That's definitely something that I'm going to take away because I never really celebrate the wins. I'm always focused on what I'm not doing or what I'm not winning and not even reflecting on how far I've come or what the gain is. One thing that I would wonder about, but certainly not
Yeah, go ahead.
right now
Question.
for a
Go ahead, your
question
question.
is So many of us see ourselves right now as coach first, but we're shifting into this mentality around CEO because we want to be bigger. And I was just curious in that transition, did you notice anything about your identity shift? Did you have any kind of regret or feelings around giving up the coaching, not because you were worried that someone else couldn't deliver in the same way you could, but more just this is who I've been for a while. Now I'm CEO. What was that like for you?
Think that's such an incredible question. And, I think I surprised myself in the sense that when I started this business, I was so empowered in and loving the coaching side of things. And it's not to say that I don't love it anymore. I do. But in stepping into more of the CEO mindset, I realized things that I at this point think I love even more, right? Like I love public speaking and I love being able to do things like this. And I love going on podcasts and I love doing media interviews. Like I really like that. It brings out an energy inside of me that I don't always get to tap into. So I think that while part of it, and sometimes like there's feelings of guilt of, well, I started doing this as a coach and now I'm not doing this as much, right? Like the normal talk track comes up. But I think it opened up for me to say, oh my gosh, like, wow, there's an opportunity for me to build this business in a way that feels good for me, but allows me to lean into other things that I didn't necessarily think I would be leaning into as much when I first started. So I think you surprise yourself and it just creates these opportunities that you weren't necessarily thinking about to start. I think you're muted, Diana.
Oh, sorry. I think that was such a great question here of the shift of going from coach, creator, CEO, and the closer in the business. Right? When you don't have the team, you're playing all these four different roles. And a lot of times, like we start off as a coach because we're passionate about coaching. And as we grow, we're like, okay, we got to market ourselves before we become a creator. And then really, but to grow a business, we got to be the CEO of our business, and we need to also be a closer to be a salesperson unless we have someone helping her out. So there's this constant shift. But I love what you said that you surprise yourself because there's this deep down, like, yeah, where we may want to just be a coach, but then like, hey, if we master the skill of having great conversations with people, like we can work on becoming a great salesperson, great closer as well. Right. And a
Right.
lot of it's going to be the mindset shift of how you see yourself. Like someone said to me the other day, the big shift in the program so far is seeing selling is serving. Selling
Mhm.
is serving. And that has shifted the way they approach conversations and able to close more sales as a result of this whole mindset shift.
Right. And I think like on that same note, I think that when we think about coaching traditionally, right, it's us sitting with the clients and it's this one-on-one setting, but I think it's also redefining that, right? There's a lot of different ways that I can coach somebody, whether it is I get interviewed for an article and they're learning tips from me, right? Like there's a lot of other ways that you can still coach and influence others and support others without it being the more traditional model. And I think that can help in making that shift, knowing that like your core purpose and your core mission is still happening. It's just happening in a different container.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else? Learnings, questions? Lindy?
So I'm curious, Eliana, not that I'm necessarily at this place yet, but when you first brought on somebody else, I can't remember if it was a salesperson or another coach. I think it was a salesperson.
Yes, I think it was, or no, it might have been another coach first. I'm like, now I can't remember. I think it was it was probably like a very much around the same time. I had a coach that was helping me in my group coaching program, and then very soon after, a salesperson.
So my question is, if you don't mind going into the weeds a little bit around that. So what was that conversation like? Did you retain legal counsel to come up with the contract? Just what kind of practical steps you took to develop that first relationship?
Yep. So, and I think it's important, like my salesperson is a contractor. It's 1099
Okay.
employee. So it's not full time. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But the first thing that I did put together a contract, and I have one of my friends like specifically is a lawyer and like does
Yeah.
this, like she works with a lot of influencers and things like that. So she helped me put together a contract, and obviously worked off of that. I think there was a lot of trust built in because my salesperson was a prior client. So it wasn't like I was
Right.
just seeing a random person and, I had all these worries about them. So I think there was like inherent trust built into that, but definitely wanted to make sure that obviously, dot our T's or dot our I's, cross our T's, that we had a legal contract in there as well that outlined obviously what the expectations were, what the rate was, and things like that. And I realized, Diana, we didn't talk about pricing if you wanted, but.
Yeah, we should talk about pricing. Pricing, what do people want to know about pricing? This is a hot topic. We actually should talk about pricing. I'm curious. Teresa, do you have a pricing question?
I don't have a pricing question. I had a different question. So if you wanted to move into that topic, that's okay.
Okay, let's move into a bit of pricing.
Okay.
Where do we go from pricing? I guess like tell us a little bit in terms of how you think of pricing one-on-one versus group.
Okay, sure.
I
And I
think
was going to say too, for like paying the coaches, because you asked me one question about this and not stealing clients. So I'll just very quickly speak to that.
yeah.
So when I hired my first coach, like the first thing that I did is I asked them what their hourly rate was. I was like, what do you expect people to pay you? And that's what I'm going to pay you. So I wanted to make sure that it wasn't a situation where they felt they were being undercut or anything like that. And I think that's helped them to obviously have stability, and it creates a situation that there's, again, I'm hiring people that I trust, right? But that there's no incentive for them to steal a client because they're going to be getting paid the same rate, whether they're working independently or they're working through me. And the beauty of working as a coach on my team is that we're doing all the marketing, we're doing all the sales, we're vetting clients, right? So that's a tremendous service to them, who often people who are like, I hate doing marketing, right? I don't want to do any of that. So we're able to provide that for them so they don't have to worry about it, and then simultaneously pay them what they would normally get paid. So that's on the coaching front. And I think that's been really helpful in building a really strong team. In terms of pricing, I think like for many people, prices have obviously changed and raised throughout the years. I wish to like, again, my one-on-one coaching like has the career strategy packages, like we've changed over time, but because we've added more sessions. So it's like a 3-month package where you meet bi-weekly, but when we had started, it was less sessions. And I priced it out from the perspective of making sure that we're paying the team what they want to be paid and what their rate is, but also making sure that there's enough of a profit margin for us so that it makes sense. So it was kind of just thinking about, okay, what do we need to pay them? What are we looking to make? Comps in the market, what are people paying for similar packages? And then just making sure that we felt like that it was a fair price, but also like work from a business model perspective. So that's how we've generally thought about that. I know it's not too specific, but I think like doing market research is important. Understanding the audience that you're serving is important, and what level of income do they have to play with, right? Like obviously if you're speaking to somebody who's fresh out of college versus somebody who's 10 or 15 years in, I think that those are all factors to consider. So I think market research is an important part of it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that what you shared is that you consider what the market rate is, what they're asking for, but also in terms of the profit margins as
Yeah.
well, the way you think about it. And from my experience, coaches who are part of like companies, they may tend to maybe feel like they're what's the word? Not underpricing, but pay them less, like the hourly rate of it. But I love that you take the model that you're paying them what they're asking for. So the likelihood of them leaving or stealing a client is less because they're happy with what they're asking for there. So I find that really smart way of doing it. It's really rare I hear that, I would say.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that, and we probably could have just, again, because we're doing the marketing and and all of that, we probably could have paid them less, but I just felt like that was important. And I know it makes them happy. And yeah, it just creates like a really good relationship there. And then it's also pay transparency. Like every coach is paid the same, right? So even coaches who came in with a lower hourly rate, we're matching and paying the same, because I don't want them to ever hear, oh, well, you're paying so and so this, why are you paying me that? Right. So I think like,
Oh, so they're all the same.
yeah, the equity, the pay transparency is like really important to me. So we always wanted to make sure we
I
had
love
that.
that. We have a question specific from Katie. Katie, do you want to ask a question or you want me to ask it here?
Sure, I can ask it. Sorry, my Wi-Fi's been spotty, so I'm off video. But I have a similar structure in that I have a group program and I've since inception done the like help you till you get a job. And I'm at the point now where I'm actually going to change that because I have too many people who are building their own consulting businesses after getting clarity on what they want to do. But I think the question that I have is like the one-on-one adds a lot of value, but to what degree, right? Because it's like I think people feel like they need more one-on-one, but in reality, they can actually have a lot of success in the group. So I'm curious, like to what degree that part is like unlimited versus capped, and
Yeah.
how much having that still with the group has allowed you to increase prices. Because I've navigated similar recently.
Absolutely. So there is a set number of one-on-one coaching that you get. It is not uncapped one-on-one coaching. So that the way that the program is structured is when you start the program, you get 3-hour-long one-on-one sessions with your coach. And a lot of those sessions are kind of focusing on more of the foundational elements of like
Okay.
talking through some mindset blocks and things like that. And the clarity piece, and then you move into group coaching. The group coaching is unlimited in that you can keep joining calls until you land a role. And then you also get lifetime access to our online portal of like trainings and resources and Slack. And then you can also like engage in the Slack community unlimited. But one-on-one, there's 3 coaches up front, and then we do another 3 30-minute more tactical calls for like mock interviewing and things like that. But that's capped. There's never more than those 6 sessions unless you wanted to like add on additional one-on-one sessions that you pay for on top of it.
Okay, so do you have them complete the one-on-one before they ever touch a group call?
Yes, they do their 3
Oh,
one-on-one sessions. The first 3 sessions they do before they touch a group call, so that they're coming into the calls with a little more clarity on direction. And then the 3 additional one-on-ones that they have later on, those are while they're doing group coaching when like I have an interview coming up, I want to do a mock interview or whatever it is.
I
that
love.
makes sense. Thank you.
Do
Yeah.
you, so essentially it's they get the 3 one-on-one first with the assigned coach.
Yes.
They don't necessarily have the one-on-one session with you either. It's
Yeah, I
the coach.
like I mostly it's with the coaches on the team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And from a support standpoint, ongoing support in like your the community, is that something like you're in there as well, providing support?
That's where I am. So like I have myself and there's another coach, Chelsea, where we lead group coaching calls. We switch off. And then on Slack, people can message me, voice note me on Slack unlimited. So like they can privately message me and things like that. So that's where they're interacting with me on group calls and they're interacting with me on Slack.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Something that I've learned too is the positioning of one-on-one. Like in traditional sense, one-on-one means we have a one-on-one session, right? And the one-on-one meeting. But one-on-one can also be ongoing support, one-on-one support. Let's say the text and voice messaging support, whether it's through Slack, WhatsApp, whatever that is, and that could be highly valuable. So like our fellow mastermind alum, like Tiffany Uma, like they talk about one-on-one support all the time, but it's never one-on-one sessions with them with her at all. It's just one-on-one support ongoing in their Slack channel. So it's all positioning and framing and messaging here of how you frame things
Yep.
to your prospects. Yes, amazing. Who else's question? This is really helpful. Do you was thinking about structuring the program of one-on-one and group? So now that I'm hearing more of this, then when we think about it, in this case, I feel like having the group program and one-on-one is more valuable because I get both versus just one-on-one.
It is. It definitely is. I think it comes down to like I still have some clients that are like, I'm just not interested in being in a group setting. Like that's just not what I'm looking for and things like that. The group is also a higher price point than the career strategy packages because even though one is exclusively one-on-one and one has group, the career strategy packages are a finite period of time versus the group has that guarantee built in. So then sometimes it's more people who from an investment standpoint, they'd rather invest like they want the one-on-one and they'd rather invest the lower investment versus the full group program. But you're right in the sense that technically anybody could benefit from it. I think we're just sometimes more selective about the people that we want in the group setting and it being like the right person and the right personality who's going to bring the right vibe and the right things, right? So sometimes we speak to somebody, we're like, we know we can help you, but you're not necessarily like as much of a fit for like the group setting that we're looking to build right now.
I love that. So what I'm hearing, 1, being selective, but 2, the need of people that wanting one-on-one versus being in both.
Yeah.
Meaning the demand of that. Yeah. Would you be open to sharing a bit the price difference between one-on-one versus the both other?
Yep. Yep. So career strategy packages, which is the 3-month one-on-one coaching program with the coaches on the team, are $2,250. And then the career upgrade program, which is the hybrid mix of both group and one-on-one, is $4,225. And sometimes we do like a fast action discount and we'll be like, we're going to be doing, $200 or $300 off the group if you enroll in the next, 3 to 4 days or whatever it is. But the standard price point is $4,225.
I love that you raised your pricing from last year. Amazing. Guys, I'm very happy to hear that. Tell us a little bit, because do you still do launches, the masterclass and launches?
No.
Can you tell us a little bit about this? Because I know you did quite a few of them. Tell us what was the rationale of not doing them. I know it's because it's like focus on what works. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if there's one thing that I dislike as much as creating content, it's launching. And again, I think that there are some people that are just amazing at it and they just have the systems in place and they have the energy for it. And for me, it never felt organic. It was always a struggle. It never worked that well for me. Like I would sometimes have good ones. And then even when they were good, they weren't great. And I was just like, I'm not going to do this anymore. This isn't working for me. And again, fortunately, we had the inbound demand from search and even from, again, like getting people from our master class that we have running. Like we have our master class running evergreen. So I recorded that years ago, and now we have through Webinar Jam, you can watch up and sign up for it whenever. So that can drive people to schedule calls with us and things like that. So having it run evergreen just felt so much more authentic for me and took so much pressure off for me that's really how I thought about it. Again, like focus on your expertise. Like my expertise is not in creating 6-figure launches. That's never been my expertise. And I'm aware of that. So I didn't want to spin my wheels on something that I wasn't particularly good at and that wasn't bringing me joy ultimately.
Love it. How many launches did you do?
Oh God, I don't even the years. I mean, I don't know. In all my years, like I'm sure I launched like close to 10 times.
10 times. Okay, you've done it enough times to be like, this is not for me there. But
I think there is a necessity to it more in the beginning because it provides a lot of learnings, that's for sure. And I definitely learned a lot from the process, what resonates and what doesn't, what in the masterclass do people like and what do people not like, right? Like, so there's definitely learnings from it always. But for me, I kind of took those learnings and I said, okay, I'm going to do something different.
Love it. Katie, if you're still here, I want to ask you, what are your lessons you're learning with launches? Because I know you've been doing launches first year in business and you built the 6-figure business first year. If you can maybe share what some lessons learned from launches for you there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's based on like what you enjoy, what your energy is. I would say I do like a light launch model of minimal emails and just try to get as many people onto the live class as possible. I'm not doing one this month. I had a goal for Q1, do it every single month on my topic that converted best from last year, see how it goes. And I'm tired of doing the same topic and want to change it up. So I'm going to test out like a free course funnel and take what I've learned really resonates from that and test out not like a full evergreen, but I use that masterclass to convert people in the sales process now. But it is tiring, especially to do it nonstop. I do think there's a lot of value, at least for me, in building credibility. Because if you got a bunch of people live on a call, they're like, this person's a real coach from LinkedIn who now has actually other people here following and engaging, but doesn't fit everyone's style. For me, like, absolutely, I really love doing the live classes.
Yeah.
It's just more of the operations stuff that's like very tiring about it.
Are you getting your leads primarily through that right now or through other channels like through DMs?
I do a lot of set calls by DMs. I have no SEO at all. I still don't really have a real website. So yeah, it's just from LinkedIn content. So the interesting thing is when I was promoting my launch, I would basically promote my webinar for 10 days, do it, and then promote the replay for about a week. So I was doing so much bottom of funnel content that my audience wasn't growing as much. And so that's why I kind of took a break and focused a little bit more on like top of funnel content the last couple of weeks. And now I have more like just straight inbound. But the people who come to the masterclass convert much faster with like no objections versus people who are like haven't really experienced that flow. So that's something that I'm like working on.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I love that. I'll definitely have to have you back to share with us more. One thing I've seen that's been working for me, I don't do lunches. I'm not a lunch person either. I think of it more soft lunch. Like I'm more like an event person. Like come to my event and spend the day with me at the spa. Like that's how I think about my launch events is like come hang out with me. What has worked well for me this year has been really creating more experiences, whether it's virtual events, in-person events, sending voice notes, DMs. I've really doubled down on testimonial type of content, client success stories. So that has worked really well there. Hey, Brendan. Hi. Say hi to everyone. Brendan just got off from school here. Monday just finishing. Can you give me half an hour? Mommy has a presentation right now. But so yeah, that's what's worked well for me. It's really around connecting with people. For me, it's been really about trust building activities that has been really important that I focus on. And so the learning here is like going back to what makes you come alive, what feels easy. This month I have 8 events, which seems crazy for most people, but like 8 events. First quarter, I did 9 events I did 12 events over 9 weeks. And so that has worked really well for me in terms of connecting with people there. All right, so let's see who else has question. You want to just join the party? All right, you can join the party. Just got it from school. Okay. Questions for Eliana? Learnings? What's been so helpful here? Anyone?
Katie, I saw your question about the payment plans, and I do. So I offer either pay in full or a 3-part payment plan, like off the top. And it's usually sometimes like I'll offer a 6-month payment plan, but that I will not advertise. Like that's just if someone's like, I really want to make this work, but I can't do it, then I'll usually like default into something like that. But it's either just 1 payment or 3 payments.
I'm curious over years, we're going to talk about this because in terms of thought process, and we think about tweaking our offers, not necessarily about changing, launching a new offer. What's your thought process when you think about updating, refreshing, tweaking offers?
I think, obviously like the last big tweak that I had was coming off of the mastermind. And I feel like it was just really like, talking to you and talking to the other coaches about what could work and what wasn't working and feeling like I think it's also market dependent, right? At least for me, I feel like depending on like what I'm seeing in the market and the level of support that's needed, like those things change. And I think that again, coming off of a year with a stiffer and tougher job market, I felt like in my group coaching program that there needed to be some additional one-on-one support on top of just the straight group coaching calls. So I think that kind of probed me to say, okay, I want to build these in here, right? And then also like with my team of coaches, we'll talk about, okay, like what are we hearing from clients? What's working? What's not working well? Like what can we update? And I think like Tiff has always been so great on like get feedback from people. What do they like? What do they not like? What's working well? What's not working well? And really make sure you're integrating that in. So I think that definitely influences things and getting that feedback from your like clients that you really love and respect to say like, what do you love and what do you not love? And using that to, make the updates when necessary.
Yeah, I love that advice. Just getting that. Something that I've been thinking a lot about when I was in Japan over the holidays was just really thinking about how do I better present my offer from
Yeah.
a delivery of how do I better present the offer? What are some things that are really hitting home, but what's not? And something that I really thought about even over my trip was, when you have multiple offers or multiple tiers of within your offer, do you talk about both or do you actually focus on the one that you think it's best for them? And I love what you talked about today was listening and then recommend what you think it's best. Because if you only have a certain amount of time and you just talk about this is like what I believe is the best for you, they're going to go with that versus like, here, there's like 3, 5 choices for you to pick from here.
Yeah. They are seeing you as the expert, right? Like they're coming to you for your ideas and expertise. So I think when you say to them, like, look, this is what you shared with me. Here's why I think this is a fit and here's how it's going to help you. I think that really resonates as opposed to kind of like, well, you could do this and you could do that. And I have done that before. Like I have given the 2 options and then I always am like, why did I do that? Right? Like either it doesn't resonate as much or they end up going with the option I didn't even really want them to take. Right. So I think that it's important to like be the expert and give the guidance. And if they object to it for whatever reason, uncover why the objections are coming up and then pivot if necessary to something else. But I think always present what you think will be the best solution for them first.
Yeah, that's the confidence trust. Check in a question here is when you test, do you go as a survey? So tests, how how a product group will resonate with the people.
So my quest, I'll probably, it might make it clear if I ask. So if, as you're testing, is it more kind of testing as you go? Like you have an offering, you've got live clients, you're, kind of selling what you offer? Or do you go out and survey people at all just to understand if what you're proposing might meet market needs before you even roll anything out?
So the first, so I feel like for with my hybrid coaching program, for example, that was like me reaching out to clients in the program and being like, hey, will you hop on a call with me for, 15 minutes or so? I'd love to ask you a few questions, just to get your feedback on some things. And, like, what do you like about this? What do you not like? That kind of stuff. And not generally asking before I launch anything. Again, like I feel like I'm very much like a create the problem, like do it and then see what's resonating or not resonating and then adjust versus like feeling the need to like tailor it to them first or making it perfect first and operating that way.
Yeah. Something I talk a lot about, and I learned this from my own coach, is when you're launching something brand new, like if you're putting a new program in place, is map out the transformational journey of the client's transformational journey so that you can reverse engineer and think about your methodology, your marketing messages, and have like a work back schedule of how you want to go about launching the program. And so that I think that's one thing to really work on there. The second is I think what I've been doing even right now too is when we say like market research, like I'm hosting right now business mentoring sessions. Like tomorrow I'm hosting one, like 30 people signed up. I ask questions. I have 10 questions that people fill out to sign up for this session. So that's market research for me. I understand what are the common pain points, the challenges, what do they want to learn from me, what questions they have from me, what are their goals, what are the price points. So that's market research for me. So I think at any given time, you can gather these insights to help you, one, either better tailor your content, your emails, your sales calls, your positioning, all that is going to help. So we always want to pay attention to the pulse of like the people that we're serving. Hey, what are they really asking? How do I tweak accordingly? So that's something, even my content strategy right now, I actually because of my team helps me with the planning, we have a monthly plan and then we check in like every 2 weeks of our content and we tweak accordingly based on like the sales conversations having. That like, hey, someone's asking me about how to handle price objections, or someone's asking me about launching group programs. I think we should put a post on this and tweak accordingly there. And so that's what's really helped me from a testing standpoint is just paying attention to like what people are saying. So like people feel like you're staying up to date as well.
And I think something too that like is helpful, especially when launching something new, is like launching it as a beta, right? And kind of saying, okay, like I'm launching this new group coaching program. This is like kind of the beta version of my program. You're going to be the first people to get access to this. And I'm having you come in with the intention that I want to get feedback from you on what's working and what's not working. And you can entice people by telling them it's like more introductory pricing, right? This is the first time I'm doing it. This is a beta launch. So this is what the pricing is going to be. When I relaunch this in the future, it's going to be a higher price point. And then it takes a little bit of the pressure off of you because if things go wrong, people kind of anticipate you're almost wanting things to go wrong to see what's not working. And it's a great way to really gather feedback from people. And it creates a setting where like at the very end, you could be like, okay, we just concluded the first beta of this group, of this program, whatever it is. Like, what did you like? What did you not like? Right. And people will be likely more receptive to giving you feedback. So that was like what I did when I first launched my group program. And the first time I ran it, like a long time ago, it was kind of like, this is a beta. I really want you to kind of help me out with this and give me feedback, give me advice.
Yeah, I love that. I love the beta approach. I did that for both my mastermind and my accelerator last year. It was like a beta, and I recruited the people that I wanted to be in the program, like the people that I've already been talking to. So it just made it much easier to find the right people, test it for a few months, and get that feedback and tweak, improve accordingly there. So absolutely. Anyone else want questions here? This is good. This is like a great flow of questions. I love this. Anyone else? Aileen, you're new to our group here. What are some of like learnings and
Oh my God, everything. Eliana, thank you so much. I just learned a whole bunch of stuff. And yes, I'm the newbie. So I've been in business, coaching business for about in 2020, so about 5 years, but I do work full time and I'm about to end my corporate world and come into full time. So that's why I'm connecting and gaining all of this experience. So love the invest in your CEO and your SEO because my website's just sort of hanging out there with nothing going on. So that just the content strategy, focus on revenue generation. I've highlighted a few things. Yeah, I'm just in lead generation and just scaling. I just want to learn everything there is to learn. And I'm new to group coaching, so that's where I'm really going to try and concentrate to get more information because right now I just do one-on-one. And you're right, it is exhausting after a while. So I'd love to diversify and do some other things. So I'm just a sponge back here listening to everybody. Thank you so much for all the inputs that's I'm hearing so far.
My gosh, of course. And congratulations. So exciting. The leap from work into full-time business is a big one, but it's always it's like it's such an exciting time. It is. I know it can feel scary, but there's so many good things to come.
Oh, I'm scared, but very excited at the same time.
I was terrified. Terrified. So but it's so normal and it's amazing. It's really, you should feel like proud of yourself for doing that.
Yeah.
I am. I am. It took me a long time to, go here because, it's either piss or get off the pot, Aileen, and figure what you want to do. And I've always known what I wanted to do, but I've always had that imposter syndrome, that bit, can you do this on your own? Who are you to do your own business? Who are you to be a CEO? So now I'm trying to move past that.
Love that. Amazing.
Thanks.
Amazing. I love this. We're talking about this. I think one of the common one that I'm hearing from a lot of you want to transition from the one-on-one to the group. How to transition, especially for those who are very experienced coaches, certified coaches here. You've done thousands of hours of one-on-one coaching. Even for me, I've done one-on-one coaching for a very long time in my career coaching business. And I think one of the biggest fear I had to overcome, and there was just like a mindset, was I always felt like people just want one-on-one. They just want me. They're willing to pay more. Or when I tried to launch the group program, people were willing to come pay more for my one-on-one. So I had a limiting belief that one-on-one was better than group. And it wasn't really until I would say just the last several years, even though I've done a lot of speaking training, that it just shifted my mindset and belief of how we frame and position how group programs can be very effective. And so I actually really love the hybrid model now, like the one-on-one access to me and still one-on-one sessions on a quarterly basis with group sessions. And one of the things that I like to think about is if you already have like half a dozen people that you're working with, like one-on-ones or even like 10 people, you can set up a group already. Like you can have a Q&A session with you, hot seat with you, or bringing in a guest speaker. That's a great way to add value to your one-on-one. Meaning if you're in this transition, I'm not ready to go full on group yet, but if you already have like a handful of clients who you believe could either benefit from the community support, the networking, and have a few things to test out to see if this is something you enjoy doing, that's a great way to help you with the transition process. So they're not going just all into the group group program right away there.
There was a period of time, Ash, it's like I'm forgetting this, but as you say this, I'm remembering now, where I did something called pod coaching. And I would basically, I would do like 4 people at a time. Like I had 4 people in a pod. So it didn't feel like they didn't feel like they were coming into this big group coaching program. There was still tons of personalized support, but it allowed me to be more scalable, that versus 1 hour with one person, it was 1 hour with 4 people, right? And then you have 12 clients or whatever it is, you're doing 3 hours a week as opposed to 12 hours a week, right? And I remember it worked really well and people really liked the idea of like being in a very small group where I would still going around, every person's getting individualized coaching, right? In an hour, you get 25 minutes of your own individualized coaching, but then you're learning from the other people who are also being coached at the same time. It builds in a little bit of networking. And that was a really successful thing for me when I did it. Like I spent a full year where I was really just doing pod coaching, and it's a great introductory into group, but creates more skill for you.
I love that. Pod coaching, that's another way to reframe, like feeling a less scary other, right? I love that way of thinking. So there's just different ways of thinking of transition time there. Absolutely. Anyone else have questions? Just checking in to see who else is here. Anyone have questions for Eliana? See Clevette, Dolores, Allison. I know you're not on camera, but if you have a question, feel free to ask Eliana. One thing that I really admire about you, Eliana, that I've seen even when you came to my mastermind is you have really shifted from going from what I call a coach to CEO and the way you think about things and of your own thinking, but the way you guide people. Like even today, I feel like you really guided people through some tactical side of things, like not just thinking of the strategy, but like the step-by-step stuff that you can do. And this is something I'm challenging all my clients to think about as well. When we face a problem, what are we going to do? Let's dissect this problem other. And something I learned actually from Tiffany Uman's husband, who I'm going to have as a speaker coming up at the end of this month, is he talks a lot about finding product market fit and being agnostic. Is it agnostic? That's the word, agnostic to the problem, like just being less emotionally attached to the problem itself so that we can have this objective view of the challenge at hand. And I love what she talked about recently on the Nathan Barry show of how in order for her to scale and grow her business, we had to move away from feeling I just want to do it this way or my way, what I think it's best, what I'm passionate about, versus what's best for the business or for the clients and the team. So that's a whole mindset shift that's required, an identity shift of how being less attached to the business.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Jeremy's amazing. He's so smart.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to invite him to come talk about that. Anyone else? Thoughts, learnings, ahas from today? This was so helpful. I just love hearing this. It was really, really helpful thinking about pricing and sales. Yeah. What some things that I'm actually looking to look at bringing more salespeople too is how did you, when you think about bringing on the right people, um, I guess what was your search process? I know you hire a client and
That was honestly, I hired a client, and then just now when I was looking for another salesperson, the first thing I did was I blasted like every client that I've ever worked with and that we've ever worked with, because I really think people who have been through your program, first of all, it's the easiest for them to sell it because they're just so familiar with it. There's a very big difference between like training somebody on what like a curriculum looks like versus somebody who's gone through the curriculum. And then obviously, again, just a walking testimonial. Like that's really powerful on a sales call when somebody says, like, oh, like I'm curious how you got connected, why working with Eliana. And they say, well, I was actually a client in her program and it was really life-changing for me to the degree that I wanted to come and get other people on board, right? Like that's really powerful. So I'm always a big fan of like if you can get a client in that position, it's really, really helpful. And it just makes it a lot easier.
yeah, something I relate to. I have someone in mind who's just a salesperson and a coach as well. So I'm going to reach out to that person. That'd be my next assignment is to
Yeah.
get support there.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. What's on your horizon now for you? Like the next
What's on the horizon? So, well, my kids are home from spring break next week, so putting my mommy hat on and being home with them. But I was saying to Diana, and I mentioned it here, that we just hired an operations consultant who's been like, literally, I hired her to come in and tear my business apart and be like, what is not working? What needs to be better? And so she was going through this whole auditing process and she kind of just walked us through everything that she's going to be integrating. And now we're moving into integration. So it's going to be really just focused on building in all those new processes, streamlining, removing, the waste where it doesn't need to be so that we can really focus on scaling further. And I've said to Diana too, like I love speaking. I love being on the corporate side doing workshops. And the hope is that we can kind of create more efficiencies on the coaching side so that I can really focus more so on the corporate side and really focus on like, growing my speaking business further.
I love that. I love that. So you're really now setting these things up so that you can also set things up for you to do more things that you love, what I'm
Yeah.
hearing, that you're
Mhm.
passionate about, that you care about.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
is amazing. I feel like one of my big opportunities is the operations side of things. So something I am really excited about is my husband coming in to help me in my business. He's leaving his full-time corporate job in a couple of weeks, and he's going to be my COO of the business and to really going to rip up my business of how do we make things more efficient to provide a better client experience. So I'm going to go through that process like you. It's like, let's look at the ways that we can improve the whole business efficiency. And because I feel like I've been just operating things that I want, how I want to operate there.
Exactly. Yeah. That's like, yeah, you got to have somebody else come in and be like, I know you want to do it that way, but that's not a good way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Aileen, you have a question or
I
comment?
do. I do. And you talk about you really enjoy your speaking engagement, and I think that's what I'd love to do. Like I have an HR background and a facilitator background. I'd really like to do that. And how did you move into that? Because you said you came from sales. Is that just from, I think you mentioned, you know, public speaking and from your and then just like how did you get into that? I think I'm
Yeah.
asking a question
No, I got your,
appropriately.
I got it. Yeah. I think, well, like with a sales background, I always did a lot of pitching and presenting and public speaking. So I always knew it was something that I enjoyed and that I loved. And then I feel like even on the coaching side of things, like leading live master classes and doing workshops for coaching clients and things like that, I was doing a lot of it. And then now maybe a year or two ago, I started leaning more into the corporate side. And where I started was really with ERGs, employee resource groups, and just like finding contacts on LinkedIn there, a lot of just cold pitching and reaching out to people and want to learn about like what your ERG focuses on, what you're hearing from employees, and going in and leading like little speaking events and workshops there. And that's kind of really what I've been doing, but I haven't been able to like really focus my attention on it. So the goal is to be able to like expand beyond that, but it's time consuming for sure. Like finding the right contacts, building the relationships, right? So that's why I'm trying to kind of like outsource or build out the other side so I can really put my full attention on that and like really like scale and build up that side of the business. But ERGs is always a really good avenue to get it.
Yeah.
Way less red
Hey,
tape.
Yeah.
good, thanks.
Aileen, I have a training on how to become a professional speaker and how to brand, market, and sell your speaking services. So I have a whole resource around that. I'll send that to you. But one of the things that I want to challenge all of you, because it was actually the most popular training last year about speaking and monetizing, that I talk a lot about is you want to think about from a business model standpoint is do you want to be primarily a speaker or a coach? Or do you want to be doing speaking to generate leads for coaching? Because that changes your brand positioning. So if you want to do more monetization of speaking to generate coaching leads, then you want to also start doing even more video content to showcase, little nuggets of your signature talks, signature messages to get there. Now, if you want to do primarily speaking, doing like these 10K, 20K keynote talks, then your whole positioning of your primary corporate keynote speaker needs to go first versus coach going first. So that is an intentional strategy that you want to think about. Over the years, like I've always been a coach first, speaker second. And then it was over, I think 2019, 2020, like when the pandemic hit, that I started doing more virtual talks. And when I decided I want to do more bigger stage talks, I start putting myself as a corporate keynote speaker. That's when I started attracting to speak like at the UN or Fortune 500 companies. And so what I've learned is that the marketing matters in terms of our positioning. And even for me, I've gotten feedback over the years is because I primarily did job search coaching, transition coaching. I had to rebrand that whole thing so that corporations don't see that I go in to teach people how to find a job, but how to advance your career. And so that's just something to keep in mind as well when we want to have both B2B and B2C revenue other. Yeah. That's something we talked about too, Eliana, because we want to do more speaking in terms
Thank you.
of position.
This is what Diana was just coaching me on a few days ago. So she's like, Eliana, you're gonna have to think about that. So yeah, it makes so much sense.
Yeah. And when you want to have a book, like this is like a whole other thing, the author as well too, like they want you to also be speaking or they want you to be being a keynote speaker to the author as well. So that's a whole other thing to think about. Yeah. And they want to see how many people you speak in front of.
Yeah.
That was my challenge. I had a publisher reach out to me. They're like, can you give us the data of all the number of people that you spoke to in the last like 5 years? I'm like, you want me to create a spreadsheet of the number of people that I've like spoken in front of?
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So, anything else as we wrap up? Anyone else? This was fantastic, right? Type in a +1. This was useful. Great learning. Some of the key things I'm learning from you, Eliane, today was really focus. I'm here, like it's focus what makes you come alive, right? Of really double down on what's working, focus on revenue generating activities, things that light you up, delegate things, trust your team. Those are things that I'm really learning from you today. Like, and thank you for keeping it real because I know there's gonna be challenges as we continue to grow our
Yeah.
business.
I told you, I'm honest to a fault. I'm always like, I will always tell you what are the hard parts, what are the challenges, and yeah, because it's not always easy. And that's why I say it's like whatever you're feeling is so natural and just like don't try to resist it, just accept it for what it is and then move on to the next thing, right? Because no matter what, there's always going to be like feelings that come up and challenges that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you repurpose your content that you have right now, like on from Instagram?
Mhm.
You do a lot of
Yeah,
repurposing?
I really only post on Instagram and then we usually repurpose for LinkedIn. And if there's one other thing too, every single person here should really get familiar with AI. And like, I think that that's going to be the biggest thing. That's been a huge focus for me. If
Yeah,
you're not using it, it's definitely, it's a limitation for sure. And it can help you in every single facet of your business, whether it's on like the content development side, whether it's actually in the work you're doing with clients. So if you haven't been using it, familiarize yourself with it and learn.
absolutely. And the final thing I want to just quickly touch on when we wrap up here is one of the popular questions I get is becoming a LinkedIn learning instructor. And I know you launched your course.
Yeah.
Was it this year or last year? I forgot now.
It was like in December of.
In December. Okay. Maybe talk a little about that. I know because I recommended you, but one thing I talked about was having a lot of video content. I think that helped. Any advice you have for others as you went through that process, becoming a LinkedIn Learning instructor, recording the course?
I think that this is also like one of those things where it's the notion of you don't really just want to focus on what you think is good, but you have to see like what's needed in market, right? So especially like even now for being a coach, like a lot of people just assume like, oh, I should do a training on like resume development or whatever it is. That's not necessarily the content that people want to see. So like my nano course is all about like how do you better add value to your organization? So much more like, enterprise facing as opposed to like job seeker facing. So I think like really understanding like what are the hot topics in the market now, as opposed to kind of like what are your expertise. It's really what are the hot topics in the market now, and then of those hot topics, what can I best speak to?
Amazing. Understanding market needs and the demand. That going back to that, paying attention to that. Amazing. This was so good. Thank you for keeping it real. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. I'm so proud of you to see how much you've grown since I first met you and to now you're truly stepping into the CEO role with a huge team with 11 people now, like 8 coaches, 2 salespeople, and one VA. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. And congratulations with all the inbound leads that you're getting on a monthly basis as well. I'm so proud of you to see that there.
And thank you for all your help and support along the way. You're the best cheerleader in the world and support system. So
Oh, thank you. And thank you for always endorsing me. Eliana is one of those few people I've met. Literally, I remember a week before the mastermind, 2 weeks before the mastermind, putting on Instagram stories to tell people to join my mastermind. Or day 2 of the mastermind, creating a video of why it's worth it to join the mastermind. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being such a great supporter. I really appreciate that. It means a lot because I know a lot of coaches who come to me in my programs because they've heard about me through other fellow coaches, through their stories and learning. So I appreciate you so much. Like this is what's all about is helping each other to rise and source each other.
was there a question?
Yep.
Oh no, I think that's someone. Oh, that's me too. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. It's so great seeing you. I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you so much again,
Thank
Eliana.
you.
Bye,
Appreciate it.
everybody. Thank you for
Take care.
coming.
Thank you so much.
Feel free to connect with her as well on social. Take
Yeah.
care.
Bye.